Hello everybody, my name is Tony and welcome back to the Mega Man tutorial series that we're building a Mega Man style game in Unity. This is the second video, and in this video we're going to build out his animations and expand upon his movement. In the last video we set up our scene, we added a couple backgrounds, the ground, a couple walls, and our single image sprite of Mega Man with some basic movements so he can move around the screen, because we also added a camera that would follow him around. And in the last video, I didn't realize it was going to turn into an hour, so I didn't really go over the camera that much, especially the time offset aspect. And the time offset basically determined how fast or slow the camera would end up moving towards the target, and the target being our player, in this case Mega Man. So if we go back to the code, we had the location of our player and then this time offset. We're going to ignore the position, like the offset position, so it doesn't, we can change that so it doesn't exactly move to right on top of our target being Mega Man, and the boundaries of the camera, which basically locks the camera within a certain view space. So what was important to note was, as this function ran every frame, our start position was always where the camera was, but it was also calculated at the end here and used on the next frame. So our end position always became our start position on each frame. And so this created where it's not, we use lerp, so it's not actually linear, it's more exponential. And so in this, so our start position was always calculated as our last position on the previous frame. Our target, which is where Mega Man is, it doesn't actually change unless he moves. So it remains constant unless he moves. So this is always the same, and then this is what was always moving. And then our time offset is basically the speed of how fast the camera moves towards that target. And then there was basically, this is the equation. It's real simple. It's the end position minus the start position. The value of that times the time offset, and then add that to the start position. So as a simple example, not including like accounting for delta time and aspects like that, our start position, we'll just say we'll start at 0. Our target, we'll just say, is 100 units out. So that's where we want to end. That's where we want our camera to end up, at 100 units out. And if we just use a value of, say, 0.5 right now, right in the middle, or 50%, you could say. These are the iterations for or passes for each time the camera or each time the update runs. So at the very beginning, we start at 0. Our target is 100, and if we have a time offset of 0.5, the camera position ends up at the end of that frame at 50. Going to the next frame, we take our last position, which was 50, and we use that. That's going to become our start position. Our target's still the same at 100, and then it becomes 75, and then 75 will be our next start position, and etc., etc., etc. So what you'll notice here is that it starts out very strong, very fast, and then it starts to slow down here because it's already basically moving slowly towards a target. And time offset basically determines how quick or how slow you end up at that target. So if we change those values, like my favorite is 0.25. So when we start out there, we start at 0, we're trying to make it to 100. With the time offset of 0.25, our camera moves 25 units on the first round. Taking that, we go to the second round, and etc., etc. So you can see it starts out strong, but it's slow. It's a lot slower. It's not like the last one where it jumped. It was basically got up in the 99s and just stayed there with fractions incrementing. But here it's slowly crawling up to 99. Well, if we go with the opposite side of the spectrum, let's just say 0.75, starts out real strong and it stays strong up until the end. So basically, the higher the value, the faster it is to making it to the target. The lower the value, the slower it is to make it towards the target. So if we actually see this in action, we're just going to come over here to the game. We're going to run that. And I muted the audio. We don't need the audio for this. And so we're going to go to our main camera here. So right now we're at 0.25. So I want you to watch the player. I'm going to drag the player and just watch. When the player stops, you'll see how the camera is either going to go fast or it's going to go slow to get to the target. But with this being 0.25, you're going to see it slowly move towards the target at the end. It's going to start out very fast, but it's going to slow down. So watch. You see that drag? That easement? It goes stop, and then it just goes da-da-da-da-da. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change this to 0.5 right in the middle. Go back to the player. See, it's a lot more, boom, already there. No, not much any drag whatsoever. It does a little bit. You can notice it. You can see that it's a little bit, but it's not like at 0.25. So if we change this actually now to 0.75, it's like you're not going to notice it much at all. At least I don't. So now it's like you're basically on that player. That target, that camera moves right to that player really quick. So let's try the opposite way. I'm going to do it 0.1. And then you're going to really notice that there's a slowness to when it tries to make it towards the target. You see that? You see how it slowly drags? Even when he stops, it's still moving. Yep. So I just want to talk about that real quick. So that's what the time offset does. It doesn't take into account that other stuff, like the delta time and everything. But so the lower the number you have, the slower it'll be. The faster the number, the more quick it'll be jumping towards the target. So I just wanted to talk about that real quick. So with that done, now we're going to see what our final product is going to be when we're done with this video. So let's unmute that. So right now, last video was just plain old Mega Man. So if you actually see this, he blinks now. That's his idle animation. We're going to run. And we can run left. We can jump. Actually, you know what? Put that camera back the way it was. Should have did that. So we're going to run left. We're going to run right. We're going to jump. So we're going to jump while we're running. We're going to use the C key here to fire. So if we shoot, bang, 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 bang. Shoot, 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 jump, shoot, jump, shoot, jump, shoot, run, jump, shoot. And this is basically our end product for the end of this video. So we're going to get started now. Okay, so open up the project, which you have from the last video. And at the end of that video, I encouraged you to expand the scene. So add in another background, change the limits of the camera, extend the ground, and move the right border boundary. So in case anybody had any trouble with that, we're going to do that first in this project. So first thing you're going to do is expand the backgrounds and find the background 2. And so you can do Control D to duplicate that, and then we're going to rename that to BG3. So with BG3, we're going to change the X position because right now it's sitting in the same location as BG2 where we duplicated it. And we're going to change that to 7.68, which should be to one more background width over. Next is we're going to extend the ground. So select your ground, and then over on the right, hit the collider, the little button here at the collider for the ground, and then down the bottom there, drag that tick out so it's past the graphic, and so it'll sit past the right boundary when we're done moving that as well. So we want to keep our player inside the scene and not let them fall out in any way. Next, you're going to find the white wall under the boundaries, and you're going to move that as well. So that 7.68, that's another with 3.4, should be 11.52, and I should move your right boundary all the way over. And then last but not least, we're going to change the limits of our camera, because right now it's basically bound to the end of the second image. So we're going to go over here, and the width of the image being 3.84, we're going to change that to 6.93. And so now if we run this, we should be able to see now 3 lampposts in the scene. And now we do. So we have extended the scene out. So now there's 3 backgrounds. All the way to the end. Alright, so let's stop that. We wanted to do that. So now everybody's on the same page. Now we're going to go to the real fun stuff. We're going to create the animations. So to do that, there's a few ways. I'm not too fond of one of them, but I'm going to show it anyway in case that's one that you like. But first we're going to get this out of the way. We're going to come over here to our graphics folder and find our player. Now in the first video we only basically had the one sprite, so we have to change that. We need to get the rest of the sprites. So we're going to select the player graphic, and we're going to hit the Sprite Editor. And when this comes up, this is the only one that we had, was the very first one, this one. So we could draw each one or draw an outline around each one, but we're not going to do that because that would take forever. So what we're going to do is use this slice option up here, and we're going to let it do it automatically. And for the pivot, we want the bottom center. That's where we wanted to know where the pivot is basically down here at the bottom of the feet. And then we can just choose this option here to delete the existing one, so it's going to replace that first one. And then we're going to hit slice. So once we hit slice, you can't really tell. That's why sometimes I like to hit this icon right here, switch it to black and white, and then you can actually see the outlines around the graphics. And if you're manually doing it, it actually makes it a lot easier to trace around it than trying to figure out where that little green box is on that, that transparent gray-white background. So now that we have all these, what we're going to do though is the ones, what we're going to do with this is we're going to rename these though, because the first time we just left it at player 0 and then player 1, etc., etc. But what we're going to do is we're going to rename these to what our animations are. So this is actually going to be idle 1. This image here is idle 2. So the idle image only has like one image, these 2 images. His eyes are open, and then he blinks. Eyes are open, then he blinks. Those are the only 2 images that consist of his idle animation. There's this one here, but he's standing in a different pose. That's not part of this. The next one is the run. There's 3 images to the run. So we're going to say this one is run 1. This will be run 2. And then this will be run 3. There's one jump image. So this is the only one. So, well, there's others, but these are different kinds of jumps. This is the jump we're interested in. So this one, we're just going to call it jump. And then we're going to skip over all those. Skip, skip, skip. And we're going to select this one here. Now, this is his idle shoot, where he's just standing and he's shooting. So we're going to want this one for this video. So we're just going to call this one shoot. The next one is running and shooting, which consists of also 3 images. So we're going to call this one run shoot 1, run shoot 2, and run shoot 3. And then this image here is actually of him jumping and shooting. So we want that one. There's only that one. And then jump, shoot. So we should have idle, run, jumping, and we're going to talk about this one later. Oh, actually, this one. And then shoot, run shoot, and jump shoot. So those are the animations that we're going to create in this video. These other ones, I may have to play the game a little bit more to figure out what all these are, but these are the ones that we're interested in right now. So once we've done that, we're going to hit apply. And you can close out the Sprite Editor. And now if you expand your player here, you'll see that there's all those ones that it automatically created, but then here's all the ones that we created, we renamed basically. So the idle, 1, 2, the jump while shooting, run 1, 2, and 3, run shoot 2, and run shoot 3, and standing and shooting. So let's save that first. We're going to bring this back over. We're going to expand this a little bit. So there's one way that you can create animations in Unity. This is the way I'm not too fond of. What you can do is come down into all of your graphics here. If you control and highlight multiples and drag them into the scene, it'll automatically bring up this window, and it wants you to create an animation. So we're going to use that animations folder that we had from the first video that we created. If you don't, then you can right click over here go into the assets, right click, and create a folder, call it animations. And we're going to name this player idle. So this is the player idle animation. So we're going to wait for that to get created. It's taking its time. Okay, so that's one. And then we'll do the run one. I'm not going to go too much into this, but if you're going to drag that in there, go into the animations, and then this one is going to be player. We're going to call it player run. So those are the 2 animations. We'll get to the others, but we're going to do it with the other method. So now if I go into the animations folder, you see it's created my idle animation and my run animation. But what it also created was an idle controller and a run controller. We only want one controller to handle all these different animations. So this is kind of like overkill basically. So that's one way of creating it. But that's not the way I like to do it. So yes, we're going to delete those. The way I like to do it, but we're going to show the other alternative method as well. So first thing we can do is inside of here, if we right click in the animations folder, this is where we want to save this asset. We're going to right click, create, and then first we're going to do is we're going to create an animation controller. We're going to call it player. And inside the player, what we're going to do is we're going to, well actually these objects, they also created objects on top of it. We don't want those extra objects in there. That's another reason why I don't like dragging the animations into the scene, so it automatically creates them. So we're going to go to our player, and under the animator that we added, we're going to drag the player into the controller. So this controller has this, this is the object for that. And if we go to our player, you can see we have no clips. So inside of here, we're going to create a new animation. We're just going to call that player idle. That's the first one. So now we created that. So now we have player idle up here. Now this is the other way that you can create them. So when you go to your player, you're going to see, oh, it's not there. But you actually hit create. And we'll just say yes, overwrite it. There. That's the alternative method. And then what you do is select create a new clip. Then you would say like player run.anim. There, now you have another clip, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the second way that you can create them. The third way, which is basically very similar, however, what I like to do is I'm just going to duplicate these things. So we have idle, we have run, we have shoot, Control D, we have jump, copy that, then we have jump shoot, and then we have run shoot. So we have idle where he's standing, running, when we're jumping, when we're shooting, and then we can jump and shoot, and we can run and shoot. So these are our animations. There should be 6 of them. 1, 2, 3. Yep, there's 6 of them. These are the animations. Now, the thing is when you do it, excuse me, when we do it this way, it's not going to tie them to the animator. So we're going to go to the animator, which we don't have there, but we're going to double click on that, and what it's going to do is it's going to drop these little blocks in here. Think of them as the blocks of your animations. These all represent your animations. And so we have idle and run. Those were created when we had the drop down. So the other ones I created outside of that. So we have idle, run, then we're going to add jump. So what you can do is when you're back over here, highlight it, go back to Animator, right click in this area, select create state from selected clip. And then you basically do that for each of the other ones. And then we have run, jump, right? So run, jump, we want shoot, let's add in shoot, put that over there, we have jump, shoot, and then we need run, shoot. Run, shoot. There. So now, if we look at up here on our player, you'll see that now we have all the clips. All the clips are tied to our controller. So, but the thing is, next, we don't have any actual animations in there. We have all these empty clips. So now we're going to create the clips. So we're going to start with the idle. So go back over to your project down there. We don't need, well, we do need this actually. We're going to expand this. Actually, we'll just expand this. Let's start with that. Keep this over here for now. We're going to go into our graphics. Scroll down here. We want the idle and idle 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag those two into here. So now we have these 2 keyframes. If you expand that, you'll see 1 image, 2 image. Well, let's drag that one out. So that's the first graphic, and that's the second graphic. These are the sample rate. For the idle, I had it set at 4 for the blink. So what you're going to do is put a 4 in there and hit enter. Now he's like all the way out there. You can drag him over to 2. And what you're going to do now is hit preview, and then you can play it. Now watch over here. There's his blink. Although it seems kind of fast how he blinks. And what I found is if I have him out here to 3, it looks a little bit better. So while on preview, we're going to hit play, blink, blink. There you go. That's our first animation. Then jump. Well, jump is real simple because jump is only one frame. So we're just going to change the sample to 1 and drag the jump in there. That one's done. Same with shoot. We'll just get shoot out of the way. Change the sample to 1, hit enter, and then drag your shoot image over here. That's it for that. Now, well, jump shoot's the same too, so let's get all these one framers out of the way. Jump shoot, change that to 1, and then jump shoot we will drag up to there, and then run and run shoot, however, are not. We did shoot, so let's do run. So with run, I'm going to drag one there, run there, and one there. So that's our run. So we're going to change, I found that 10 is actually pretty good when it comes to the sample rate on his run. So we're going to change it to 10. So if we play it, but that's just too darn slow. So we're going to drag these frames over so that they're set apart by 1 each. And if we play it, there's his run. So if we were to actually change the sample rate on this, he's going to speed run on this. He's going to go crazy, boom, 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 too fast. So on 10, he runs pretty nice. So on the run shoot, it's the same. So we'll just change the sample rate right away to 10. And we're going to drag run shoot 1, run shoot 2, and run shoot 3. So go there, run it. There's his run shoot animation. So there, we have our animations. So we play up our blink for our idle, our jump, which is just a single frame, our jump shoot, which is just a single frame, our run, which is 3 frames, our run shoot, which is also 3 frames, and our regular just standing there and shooting is just 1 frame. So that's that. We're going to save those changes. And then we're going to start modifying the box collider. So, but first we're going to do that on the player himself. So if we take off the preview, yeah. See, originally he's not like that. I had already modified him. So this is what, if you have the previous video, yours looks more along the lines of like this, where it's on the outsides of them. So the box is actually on the outer of the image. We're going to change that. So we're going to bring it in. So we're going to bring it in inside of his toes, inside the top of his helmet, because we don't want it like directly on the outside. So what you can do, let's make this bigger. So what we're going to do, we're going to modify your collider, bring that over inside, so it's inside this area here, and the same with that, so it's inside this area here, and then you're bring this up, so you could say it's above his boot. Bring that down a little, and what I like to do is I'm going to round these out when I'm done, these values. Zoom in there. Okay. So those are the colliders. So this is basically really fractional 0. So we're going to change that to 0. This is basically 0.19. This is 0.22, and this one, if you really round it up, is more like 0.12. So there. I like the precision, but this is good enough for me. So there, that's the base of the boundary of the box collider for the image. So now what we're going to do is we're going to modify it. Come on, get down here. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it for all the animations. So if I actually play this animation, if I preview it, because the underlying box collider is based off the idle animation, we're not going to change it here because they're the same. These images are the same. So this one we don't actually have to modify. However, we do have to modify the jump. So if I preview this, you see my box collider hasn't moved. However, my image is totally different. So what we're going to do on this is we're going to make sure that we're on this first frame here, and we're going to hit the record option here. And what this is going to do is it's going to record whatever changes and it's going to add them to the timeline here. So we're going to move up to here. We want this on the edge inside of his toe for the jump. And this is already down there, so we don't need to worry about that. But on the left side, we're going to bring it in side right there. So his hand and a little bit of his hand here are outside of the box collider. So that's okay. We're gonna keep it like that. So let's zoom in here. You can barely see it. We're gonna bring that more over. Up down here, we're gonna bring this up a little bit. And on this, bring that over a tad. There. What we're going to do is we're going to truncate a lot of these things. So that's 0.14999. So we're going to say 0.15. That's like a 0.28. And that's 0.14. And then we're going to unrecord it. So now, let's say we switch back to idle. There's the idle. If we go to jump, preview it. Now you can see our box slider has changed for the jump. So let's go to jump shoot. So let's preview that. Box collider is wrong. So we're going to click and make sure that's our first frame. Hit record. Same deal. Just up a little. We're going to bring it to here. We're going to bring this into there. And we're going to bring this in to his toe. So bring that over a smidgen, bring that over a smidgen, and then we're going to round these out. There. So then we're going to unrecord. So that is our jump shoot. So our jump, and then our jump shoot, preview it, done. Next, we're going to do this is multi-frame. So we're going to skip the multi-frames. Let's just do the shoot one for right now. Let's get the single out of the way. So we're going to click that, hit the record. Now on this one, we're going to go to, actually it's going to go into the elbow here. We're going to go into the elbow, and we're going to bring it into his face and toe right there. And the top is fine. So that's where we want our bounding box to be on the shoot. So negative 0.0, well, that's basically 0. Actually, I take that back. 0.35. And then this one's more like 0.16. There. So we're going to unrecord that. So now, we go to our jump shoot preview. We're going to go to our player shoot. There's the bounding box for that. Next, we're going to do the run. Now, run has 3 different sprites in it. So we're going to start with this one. So let's start on record. We're going to bring that over to his toe and the back of his hand. Bring this one up to his face. think that's where I want it. And hold on one sec. Yeah, we're going to do it right. We're going to do it right on the face. And then we're going to bring this down there. Okay, so for this one, round out to 25. This is like 11. This is like 0.2, and this is like 0.17. There. And then we're going to move on to the second one. So on this one, it's going to be face, top of the helmet, and back of the elbow, I believe. Yeah, back of the elbow. And we'll round this out, so that's like 0, that's like 12, 22, 14. So that's good. Then the third one, we're going to bring this out to his fist, I believe, right there. Bring that down to the top of his head, and we're going to bring this out to his toe. So in that case, we have 0, and that's 11. That's good. That's 0.2. That's good. And this is more like 0.19. So there. Now we're going to stop recording, go back to the beginning, and we're going to go tick, tick. So you can see those are his animation frames. So boom, 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 forward. So now if we play it, you see the box, it moves with him on each frame. Last one we're going to do is the run shoot. So if we preview that, we're going to have to make some changes to this one as well. So we're going to go to the first frame here and start recording. We're going to change that to where the toe is. We're going to bring this into where his face is, and then the top of his helmet there. So this is more like a 5, that's more like an 11, 2, and 17 is good on that one. So then we're going to go to here, the second one. This is going to be top of his head, into his face, and to the back of his elbow. So that's like a 5, 12, 22, 14. So then the third one, select that. This one we're going to have to adjust. So that's going to be, let me see, where is that? That's this 2. Yeah, so that's going to be to the beginning of his face, top of his head, and then out to his toe. So with this one, 0.5, this one's going to be a 0.11, 2, 18. And then that's it for that. Now, we go back to the beginning, frame by frame, frame by frame. 1, 2. And we play it. There's this box moving along with him. Alright, let's save those changes. That should be all of them. Idle, we don't have to worry about. Jump, we did. Jump, shoot, we did. Do this. Run, preview it, okay. Run, shoot, right. And stand and shoot. Done. We're done. We just built out the animations. Cool, huh? But now that we have the animations, like, okay, that's great. So how are we going to use them? Well, that's now we're going to start coding. So we're going to close all that up. We're going to save this. One thing we're going to do before we do that is we're going to go back to our rigid body here on the player, and we're going to lock the Z rotation. We're going to freeze the Z. We don't want to modify the Z. We don't want the rigid body Z to get modified. So the only positions we don't want to modify, or actually we do want modified, are the X and the Y. So obviously to go horizontal and to go vertical. So, but the Z, we don't want to do anything with the Z, so we're going to freeze it at 0. So now we're going to save that again. All right, so let's go. We're going to drag this out of the way. And we're going to go into our scripts, and we're going to open up our player controller. So here is our player controller from the end of the first video. Very, very, very basic. We had a move speed, a jump speed. We got a handle on the rigid body so we can manipulate it, and got some keyboard input, moved it around with the velocity, and we hit the jump key, which was a space bar, which is right here. Then we made the Y change with the velocity on the jumps with the jump speed. So we're going to change this up. First thing we want to do is we're going to change the move speed. Now, from what I've been toying around with the values and building my own, game of this, I found that 1.5 for horizontal movement and 3.7 for the jump actually comes out to be pretty good. So we're going to save that and go back over to Unity while it compiles in the background. And then we're going to change our player. So down here, it's not going to update these automatically. So we're going to put those in here and save those. So now those are our new speeds. So we're going to go back over to here. So now, first thing we're going to do is we need to access the animations. Now that's through the Animator. So we're going to create an Animator here. We're going to call it Animator. And down here in the start function, we're going to get its component. So get component. And then we're going to get the Animator there and save that. So now we have a handle on the Animator. So next thing we want to do is actually, we're going to be cleaning this up anyway. But we also need to get a grip on our box collider, because we're going to use that for checking to see if we're touching the ground. We need to check and see if we're touching the ground, because that's going to determine whether we're showing our jump animation, so either we're jumping or we're falling from a platform, and once we hit the ground or a ground or another platform, then we're going to be switching to our idle, or our idle animation or our run if we start running. So get the other box 2D, get the component of that, which is the box collider 2D. And so now we're going to save that. The next thing we need is some more variables here for keyboard input. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another bool for if we're shooting. So key for the shooting. Then we're going to add another variable. We're going to say a bool. We're going to check and see if we're grounded. So we need that. Then another bool for if we're shooting, is shooting. And next we need one more for checking which direction we're facing. So we're going to call it is facing right. So when I first started and learned, by watching other people's videos, I don't know, I don't remember which ones they were, but what happened was they were doubling up on animations. They would create the one animation with the default facing direction of wherever the graphic was, and then they would duplicate the animation, and then they would flip the sprite. And so if you wanted to go idle, you'd have to have a left idle and a right idle. And it's basically the same exact animation, it's just the image is flipped. Well, we're not doing it that way. We're not going to do double up on animations. What we're going to do is we're going to rotate on the y-axis our game object that'll basically flip it. And this is how we're going to know which way we're facing, if we're facing to the right or if we're facing to the left. And as we know, based off of this, by default, our images face to the right. So we're going to, and all variables that are bool are by default going to be false unless they're initialized to true. So right now it's false, so we're going to say is facing right equals true. So we're going to start it out at true. And we're just going to put a little comment here that says sprite defaults to facing right. So let's save that. Okay. Now we're going to get to the core. This is where all the fun stuff happens. We're going to access the fixed update function. This is where we're going to check to see if we're on the ground or not. So fixed updates is called when physics are involved. So obviously when we're physics, we have the rigid body, and the rigid body has to do with physics. And we're going to check on each fixed update whether our box collider is touching a ground. So on each pass, first, we're going to initialize it to false. And then we're going to determine whether we're touching the ground, and if it is the case, then we'll switch it to true. Then we're going to define a raycast color, and we're going to use this for debugging. So you're going to see what I'm talking about later. And then the raycast hit 2D. I'll explain what all these mean in a minute. Let's just start typing them out. Cast distance, and then layer mask. Now, in the first video, we defined a layer called ground. So this is what we're going to check our collisions against to see if we're touching the ground or not. So we need to access this ground layer. And so we're going to get its value. And then what we called it in the first videos, we called it ground. And if we go back over to Unity, we can see that by going to the ground, and you can see that the layer here is called ground. So this is its actual name. However, its actual value is 8. And so you'll see it's 0, 1, 2, 4, 5, 8. These are all bitwise. So perhaps you're not, but we bitwise shifted to get the value. So the actual value of it. So next, now we're going to actually get some positions for the box, and the box is our player's box. So we're going to do some ground check here. We need a vector 3. We're going to call this box origin. And that's why we needed a handle on our box collider. So we're going to use box 2D bounds center. So basically this is the center of our box collider, the position of the center of our box collider. Now we're going to modify the Y on it, the Y position. And what do is we're going to get the bottom of our box. We're going to do that through the bounds and the Y. And then we're going to add on the box 2D, bounds, the extents, and the Y. And we're going to divide that by 4. You can look these things up in Unity's documentation, but the minimum bound Y is basically the bottom of our box, where its feet are. The extent is half of the actual size of the box, so think of it as 50% of the size of the box. And we're dividing that by 4, so we're actually getting 1/8 the size of the height of the box. So we're using this to manipulate the origin of the Y, and you're going to see why when we're done doing this. Next, we need another vector 3, and we're going to call this box size. And then this is actually going to be literally the size of the box. And then we're going to change that, the Y of it. Notice the X isn't going to change, but the Y is. And it's box 2D, bounds of the size of the Y, also divided by 4. So now what we do, now we have the origin and we have the size. So we basically essentially created this mini little box that's going to sit underneath of the player based off of our actual box collider size. But it's at 1/8 the size, and it's going to sit underneath the feet. So now we're going to check if we're actually going to be touching any ground. So we want the raycast hit. What we're going to use is the physics 2D, but what we're going to use is box cast. And then we're going to start with, so it wants an origin, a size, an angle, a direction. Well, that's at least one version of it. So we're going to do box origin, and then the box size. The angle, no angle to this, so 0. The direction, we're going to cast down from our feet area, so we're going to use vector 2.down. Then how far are we going to cast? Well, that's where our raycast difference comes in. So we're going to use raycast difference. And then what are we casting? What do we want to try and collide with? Well, that's where our layer mask comes in. So we're going to select layer mask and finish that. So we're going to cast from our feet down 0.05 and try to see if we're touching the ground layer. So next, we are going to see if we're colliding. Okay, so if the raycast hit dot collider is not equal to null. So if it's null, then we're not. If it's not null, we're touching what we're looking for, which is the ground. If it is null, then we're not touching it. And then in here, all we're going to do is set is grounded to true. So we know that we're touching the ground. So we're going to set that flag. All right. So next, we want to see something visual. So we're going to draw some debug lines so we can actually see this box. We're going to see the left, bottom, and right side of this box. So we're going to draw this out. First, we're going to set the color that we want. So we're going to use the raycast color, and that's going to be equal to, if we're grounded, If we're grounded, then we want the color to be green, so we know that we're touching. This is basically for visual. If we're not touching, then we're going to use red. And it's not is ground, it is grounded. So if is ground is true, we're going to set our raycast color to be green. If it's not, saying we're in the air, then we're going to make it red. So next we're going to do debug draw ray, and we're going to say it's the box origin. Now this one that we're going to do is the right side. It's the right side of the box. So it's going to be the vertical line of the right side of the box. That's the one we're drawing first. So it's going to be the origin plus a new vector 3. And our vector 3 is going to be the box 2D, the bounds, not the bounciness, the bounds, the extents of the x with no y. And it's going to be vector, we're going to go down, so vector 2 dot down. And it's going to be the box 2D dot the bounds dot the extents dot the y divided by 4 plus the raycast distance. And then it will be the color that we created. Oh, shrink this, bring this over a little bit. Okay, so that should be the right line. Now the left is basically the same. However, instead of going to the right of the center, we're going to go to the left. So that is going to be minus, and the same thing basically. The last one, however, is going to be a little bit different. This is also going to be to the left, so because we're going to draw the full bottom. So in that case, it's going to be the extents x. I think I'm missing something here. Hold on a second. Okay, so on this one, we're going to change this. So this is going to be the bottom, but we need to go down now. So with this, it's going to be box 2D, the bounds of the extents, y, divided by 4, but plus the raycast distance. So basically, it starts here and it's going to go down, and from here, we're going to shoot to the right across the full width of the box. So then we're going to do this, where it's actually going to be the extents of the x times 2. So we already know the extents are half of the size, so it's going to be times 2. So that's going to be the full size, the full width of the box. So this should be the right side of the box going down. This should be the left side of the box going down. And then this should be the full bottom of the box. So starting from the left, going down, and then going full width to the right with our raycast color. There. So now we're going to save that. Let's just check it out. Come back over here. Bring this down a little bit. We'll zoom in a minute. So let's bring this over. Let's mute the audio for right now. We don't need the audio. We'll have the audio in a bit. We're going to play it. There. So now if we zoom in, it's kind of hard to tell with the green. But this is the box that we drew with the debug lines. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to select our player here so we can move him. So right now, he's touching the ground. Where if we drag him up, you see it's gone red. That basically means our box is not touching the ground. Now it is. Now it's not. So technically he should be in the air with his jump animation. And then down here, he touches, boom, he lands. And he can play his idle animation. So we're going to stop. We're going to go back over to the code. So that's our ground check. Now, a lot of the videos that I watched and learned from, they use raycasts. They'll put a raycast on the bottom of the feed, or they'll add 3, one at the toe, one at the other side, and one in the middle. And when I started out doing this, it did not work right. There were points where even though he was on a ground, I don't know why, but it just did not detect, and it would switch to the jump animation. So after a lot of trial and error and fiddling around, I decided, you know what, I don't need to add extra game objects to the bottom of my player to check for the ground. I'm just going to use his existing box and just manipulate the size of creating another box based off of that. And that's basically what this does. So we take the origin, we go to the bottom of where it starts, and we get the width of basically like, this is 1/8 the size of the whole box. And then we get the size of the full box, and we calculate, we're going to make it basically 1/4. And then we cast down from there. So we cast down 0.05. So that's why it looks like it's offset. So if I come back here, can't really tell. But the box is actually coming down around here from his feet. So I haven't had any problems with this method. So I mean, it's up to you. You can choose whichever method you want, but I actually like using this method because it basically has an entire box on the bottom, so there's no margin of error if it's going to touch or not. If it's like 1 point here, 1 point here, 1 point here, and for whatever reason it's not calculating based off of this in between. So up to you. But this is the box. This is how I do a ground check with mine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually get into the player movement. So let's move this out a little bit. Now, first thing I'm going to want to do here is the shoot key. We're going to check for the shoot key. So key shoot is going to be equal to input dot get key, not get key down, but get key. And we're going to say key code dot C. Why C? Well, you have your arrows that you're moving around the player with, right? Left and right. Then you have the space bar, which more than likely you're using your left hand to press the space bar. Well, you can use the control if you want to shoot your bullets, but I found because the C is like right above the space bar, I just use the C key. I find it a lot easier. So we're going to save that. And then now we're going to build out this other stuff. So we're going to go past that. So we're going to check the horizontal input first. So if key horizontal is less than 0, which basically means we're pressing left, and then else if key horizontal is greater than 0, which means we're pressing right. And if it's neither of those, then it must be that we are not pressing any keys. So let's take this. We're going to cut that out. We're going to drop that in there. We're going to drop that in there, and we're going to drop that in there. So before we took the horizontal, we applied it to the move speed. So if it was like going left -1 times that, we're going to just take that out. We don't need that. We know that we're going left based off this if statement. So if we're going left, we're going to use negative move speed. If we're going right, we're going to use positive move speed. If we're not moving anywhere, we're going to say we're not going to move at all. So that's how we're going to left, right, and no moving at all. So now, if key jump, we jumped, right? But we only want to jump if, because now we have that ground check, if we're grounded. So we're only going to allow jumping if we're grounded. And then we have you're going to see what this is for, but if we're not grounded. So this is where we're going to play basically like the jump animation in here. So if we're falling, so we didn't press jump and we're not grounded, so obviously we're going to be falling. So we need to know if we're falling. So that's what this is for. So now we're going to do the animations. Now you're going to see a lot of stuff that has to do with using this spider web network of this goes to this on this and that. I mean, I don't know. I just find it too complicated. And so I like to actually play the animations through code. I mean, I don't know. Call me old school. I'm not sure. But that's the way I like to do it. So I'm not going to build out, once this, return to that, and this not, I just find it difficult. And that's not the way I like to do it. So you can go find another video or read up on Unity how to do that. But in this video and how I'm going to be doing it, I'm going to be doing playing all the animations through code. So we're going to come back over here. Now we got a handle to our animator from here. So we called it Animator. So inside of here, if we're going left, we're going to say Animator. And to play an animation, use the play function. And then all those animations, we named them, right? So when we're going left, we're going to run. So we're going to use the same thing here. We're also going to run there. However, run left, run right, no running at all. So if there's no running at all, we're actually idle. And down here, if we press the space bar while we're grounded to jump, we're going to use our jump animation. And down here, if we're grounded, or actually, we're not grounded, we're falling from a platform, or we hit jump and we're still in the air, this is also jump. So we're going to save that. Let's check it out for what we have so far. Let's make sure our left, right, and idle and everything work. So let's bring this over. So let's play this. Oh, look at that. Hey, he's running. All right. He's running right. Going left, he's running left. I'm going to hit the space bar. He's jumping. Oh, what's that? Why is that happening? We're going to have to check into that. That's not right. So let's stop that. Let's go take a look. So key left, key right, else, key jump and is grounded. If I'm not grounded, so there's somewhere in here that's not behaving properly. And I wonder if it has something to do with my ground here. Let me check this out. Okay, I know what my problem is. So this doesn't take into account whether I'm grounded or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to check if we're grounded. Then we want to play the run. So same with down here. So actually we can just copy this, place that, and same with that. But that's okay. Stop. So annoying. Change that to idle. So then, let's see here. Down here we don't need that because we know that we're going to jump. So now if we actually try it, it should behave as expected. Crossing fingers. Okay, so I'm going to run. I'm going to run left, jump. Hey, look, there, it stayed on jump. He's jumping. So now he can jump forward. He can jump back, but we're going to take care of that flipping in a minute. So there you go. So that's the beginnings of our actual movement. So let's take care of the flipping aspect. All right, so that's where is facing right comes into play. But before we do that, we're going to create a new function down here. We're going to call it void flip. Inside our flip function, we're going to first invert the face. So when it comes in here, when we call this, if say we are facing right is true, we're going to invert it. So we're going to change it to false, which means now we're facing left. And if we call it again, it'll be, are we facing right? It'll be no, and then we'll invert it, and then we'll say yes, now we are facing right. So basically just, it's like a toggle. We're toggling between true and false on this line. Then we're going to rotate our game object. And what we're going to rotate is only on the y-axis. So we're not going to rotate the x. We're going to rotate 180 degrees on the y. Basically, we're going to mirror it. And then we're not going to do anything with the z. So we're going to save that. So now we have this flip function, but we need to use the flip function in here. So what we're going to do first, though, is, let's see here. So this is where we know we're pressing left. So if we're facing right, when we press left, we want to invert that, obviously. So if we press left, but we're facing right, we're going to flip. Then the same thing down here on the right. If we press right, but we're facing left, which means we're not facing right, we're facing left, we're going to flip it again. So we're going to flip it. So basically we're doing the opposite in here. Left key if facing right, flip left. If right key but facing left, flip right, or just flip it. So now we're going to see how that works. Let's go check it out. We're going to play. Okay, we're going to go right, going left. Oh, look, he flipped. All right. So now we can jump while we're running. We're going to go left and jump. So there. So we flipped our player around. So now he's flipping around. You can jump left and jump right, etc., etc. Okay. So next, we have the right flip, the grounded. Now we need to deal with the shooting aspect, right? So with the shoot, we're going to say, we're going to change this a little bit. We're going to clean this up in a sec, but we had that variable that we created, is shooting, right? So we're going to say is shooting is equal to key jump right now, or not key jump, key shoot. Just for right now. So if we're shooting, but if we're not shooting, so let's take this, I'm going to cut that. So if we are shooting, we want to do the run shoot, right? That other animation that we created, which was run shoot. But if we don't run shoot, then we're just plain running. So we can actually take this entire block here. It's kind of repetitive, but we need that for in here because the flip will take care of whether it's left or right. So that's for if we're shooting. Now, same deal with if we're jumping. So if we're shooting, if we're not shooting, so let's say we're going to say, actually let's cut that. So if we are shooting, then we're going to do a jump shoot. So we have jump shooting. And this is basically the same for down here, I believe. Hold on a sec, let me just double check. Jump shot is grounded, is shooting. Yeah, it's the same. There. So now if we're shooting, you can jump shoot, otherwise it's just plain jump. So now we know our C key is tied to our shoot. So we're going to play this. Okay. And there's the shoot, boom, 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 boom. However, it's not doing it. I'll do it on the run. Oh, forgot one. Stop that. Idle. Where's my idle shoot? So if is shooting, it's not really idle shoot, it's just plain shoot. Else, so let's see, control paste up here. So if we're shooting, then we just do the plain shoot. That's why it's not playing. Got to put it in there. Okay, let's play it one more time. We run, we jump, we hold down C to shoot. Shoot, 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 pressing shoot, 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 shoot. You see that? Oh, look at that. That ain't right. But that is. And then we jump shoot, jump shoot, jump shoot, jump shoot. There. So we have all our animations in place. So we need to make some tweaks though. Thing about the shooting. If once we put bullets in here and we use the get key down does not respond right. It's not like with the space bar. You have to keep kind of pounding on it and it works or it doesn't work. So that's why we have to use get key. Thing about get key though is it's like spraying an Uzi. If you hold it down, it's just going to constantly be firing. It's going to constantly be true. So, and in the game, if you actually press and hold the shoot button, he'll shoot and then he drops out of that animation back to idle. Even if you're still holding it. So it's like you have to kind of let go to keep, to be able to fire. So we're gonna replicate that type of behavior. And to be able to do that, we're gonna first get rid of this. Our shooting is not going to be tied to if the key is being pressed. It's partially going to be tied, but that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to do it at the top here. We're going to add a couple more variables. First one is going to be a float that's called shoot time. And then the next one's going to be a bool, and we're going to call it key shoot release. And this is basically a flag that we're going to know, okay, we let go of the C key or the shoot key. So then we're going to come down. We're going to have to create another function. We're going to call it, let's see, where's that at? Actually, I'm going to put it there. Put it above that. And we're going to call it, we're going to clean these other things up too. So we're going to call it player shoot input. So we're going to define in here a variable for shoot time length, how long the shooting happened for, and another float for how long it was before we released the key. Long variable names, It's actually going to be equal to 0, and this is equal to 0 as well. Every time this function enters, they're going to be equal to 0. So, first case is we're holding it on the shoot key, and the key shoot release flag is also true, which means that we didn't have the key pressed now. So the key is up, and now we just pressed it. So we just pressed the key. So first thing we're going to do is shooting is going to be set to true. So we just started shooting. We're going to change that flag to false. So now the key is down, so it's not really released. And we're going to track the time of when the button was pressed. What time? What's the timestamp? Because we need this to be able to calculate how long the button's been held down for. Next case, and actually once we're in here, this is where we shoot our bullet too. This is where we're going to call shooting the bullet. That's going to be the next video, actually shooting the bullet. I know it sucks, but this is going to be long enough with just animations and moving the player around. So the next video is going to be where we're actually going to be shooting. The actual bullets are going to be coming out of the cannon, or out of his barrel. So the next case is the shoot key is not pressed and the key is up. We just actually, is that the case? Yeah, it is the case, but let me see if my logic is wrong. So this is, the key is up, so yeah, the key is down and the key is up. So then we're going to capture how long the key was down for, which is equal to the current time minus when we started this whole event. And then we're going to say that the key has been let go and it's back up. Our last case is if we're shooting. So what happens while we're shooting? Well, now we have to see how long we're shooting for. So the shoot time length is equal to the time minus the shoot time. So another if in here. So if the shoot time length is greater than or equal to 1/4 of a second, or the shoot release time length is greater than or equal to 0.15, then we're going to say we're not shooting anymore. And you're like, oh, okay, what is all? Okay, so we have two times that we need to track. How long the shooting happened for and how long the key was pressed for. So if either of these events occur, let's say we hold down the key, right? We hold down the key, but we don't let go. If we've held down the key for greater than 0.15, I don't know how many of that's a second, but 0.15 of a second, then we're not going to say we're shooting anymore. However, that's if our shoot time length is greater than it. If our key release is being held down, if our shoot, keep pressing, then our time length is greater than a quarter of a second, then we're not shooting anymore. So now you're going to see this in practice. So we're going to come up here, but before we do that, I'm going to clean this up. I don't like throwing everything inside of the update function. Direction input. So we're going to do our direction input in there, and then actually we'll put that after the inputs. Keep our inputs next to each other. We're going to create this one called player movement. I'm going to drop that there. So our direction input, which has to do with all of our keyboard control. I'm going to drop that into our direction input. And then all of our movement, we're going to take all this, cut that out. I'm going to drop that into our player movement. So now we're going to call inside of our update function, so player direction input, and then the player shoot input. So we're going to get the two different types of inputs. Oh, this is actually calculating how long the player shoots, and then our movement. There. So get the direction input, manipulate how long the shooting is happening for, and move the player. So if we come back over to this, we're going to press play. Okay, so I'm going to press C. I'm going to hold the C key when I press it down. You see? If I hold it, it times out. It times out after X amount of seconds, or point X amount of seconds. And if I keep pressing it, if it stays within the time and it hasn't, then I don't lose the animation basically. Because we have the if. So if we're shooting, we're going to constantly playing the run shoot, or the idle, or just the standing and shoot, or the jump shoot. Not really good at explaining things, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. So if I hold the C, it times out. So it's going to force you to have to keep pressing C, and it's only going to shoot the one bullet once. So if I keep pressing C, you see the animation. If I stay within that time, the animation is going to continue, and I don't lose it. It's not going to keep flickering between idle, or in this case, idle or run and just run and shoot. But if I shoot, press, like go, press, time it, jump, press, time it, press, jump, time it, jump, shoot, shoot. You're not going to get that behavior with key down or get key. You basically need this little timer function to make it operate right. So that is the movement. Did we reach the end? Let me see. I think we did. Kind of lost track of what we were doing. So let's go left, we go right, we go jump, we jump, shoot, we shoot. Oh, actually, there is one thing we can do. What we're going to do, we have the comment in there. Where is it at? Shoot bullet. Let's just do debug log shoot bullet. So you can see at least something happening. it's going to drop on the console here. Let's clear all that out. Let's play it. Okay. Shoot. Bullet shoot. Shoot. Only one bullet. See? It's only playing it once. Even while we're still holding the key down. It's only shooting one bullet. Now if I clear this, let's try rapid fire. Shoot, 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 shoot. There. So just one shot, one shot, one shot, one shot, and it times out. So that is the behavior that we want our Mega Man to do when he's firing bullets or any other projectile. And I think we made it to the end. So we have given him the ability to run, jump, stand there and blink when he's idle, to shoot, although in the next video we'll actually have bullets. Right now he just does the motion of shooting, and shooting while he's in the air, and shooting while he's running, and shooting while he's just standing still. So at the end, actually, I was going to say, oh yeah, as an extracurricular activity, or I figured, I was like, at the end of the first video, I was like, yeah, this is actually something I want to do. I want people who like, go a little bit beyond the video, and I'll just show the solution at the beginning of the next video. So this one, we're going to, let me just move this out of the way. I want to go to the project window, and then we're going to the graphics, and let's pull up that sprite sheet again. So where's that at? I'm going to go to this Sprite Editor. Okay. The hit, when he gets hit or he gets hurt. Oops, what the heck? What happened? No, don't save changes. No, revert. Now go back in there. This. So what I want you to do, this is the image right underneath of the first one. So this is the player getting hit. So for the above and beyond, which I will cover in the next video, because we're probably going to call it shooting bullets and taking damage, because you need to be able to get hit. So that'll be the concept for the next video. So video 3, we're going to be able to shoot bullets, and we're going to be able to take damage. And I don't know how long it'll take, but we'll probably throw in the health bar too. But we're going to see. If not, then the health bar will be reserved for maybe the 4th video. So I want you to take this image, I want you to create an animation. I want you to call it player_hit. So when the player gets hit. So it's going to be a single frame animation. So you can just do speed of 1 for right now. And I want you to rename this to player_hit. And I want you to create an animation called player_hit and add it into the player animator. So that is the, I guess you could say, the bonus for this video. So let's close that. Let's actually unmute this so that we can actually play this with sound. I forgot, we turned the sound off, or I turned the sound off. There we go. So we're gonna, now it's much more exciting because we have sound. We're gonna fake shoot, boom, boom, boom. See down there? Shoot bullet. Shoot, 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 shoot. We're gonna jump, we're gonna run. Run and jump, we're going to flip around, go the opposite direction. And now we have, and our scene is extended to 3 lamppost size, so we got a lot of room to work with. We can do 4, but should be enough to have some enemies start coming at us in this video. Start creating some. Alright, so thanks for joining. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, you can leave comments on it. The assets and basically the project's going to be on my GitHub, and you can get the link out of the description. So until next time, thanks. Bye.